Well, hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, I jumped onto Instagram, and if you're not following us there, like, what are you doing with your life? Get on over there. It's at JW Coordination, and I asked you guys, what are your questions for me as a wedding planner, as a human? Like, what do you want to know? Because it's been a hot minute since I've done a Q&A, so I thought it's time. Also, I didn't have a video idea for this week, so procrastination at its finest. But you guys came in clutch with some really interesting and thought-provoking questions, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to sit on down and do a Q&A video with you guys, especially because we have so many new followers here. I cannot believe that we've surpassed 20,000 subs. Like, what is happening to my life? So for today, we're gonna do a Q&A video. Also, I need to work on shortening my intros. Someone recently said that they skip forward a minute or two into my videos to get to like the actual information that's important. If you stick through the whole video, like, you the real MVP. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Okay. What should you think about when it comes to table seating? That's a fantastic question. A lot of people can be stressed out about seating charts, and this is specifically for people who have designated seating charts, and not for people who do open seating. First of all, consider relationships. Second of all, consider personalities, and then third of all, consider like age groups. Relationships, stick family members together, stick coworkers together, stick all of your college friends together, because they all know you from the same walk of life, and so it should be a lot more of a comfortable experience for them. Secondly, consider personalities. If you've got that one person who may be a little brash and a little loud, and maybe hitting the champagne a little too hard, maybe don't put them with your more quiet, soft-spoken friends or family members. Like, stick them somewhere else with like a rowdier bunch of people and collect them all at the same table. And last but not least, maybe just consider grouping people together as far as their age demographic is concerned. And of course, this isn't a hard and fast rule. It's not to say that a teenager can't get along with your grandparents, but it does tend to work out relatively well in my experience if, even if they don't know each other, they're all kind of in the same walk of life because they're all kind of in the same age range. Now, all that being said, I encourage you not to stress out too much about arranged seating or seating charts or anything like that, because realistically speaking, they're only there for like 45 minutes. So if you get to the point where you're ready to rip your hair out because you can't figure out where to put Aunt Susie, like, take a deep breath. She's only gonna be there for a little bit. It's not gonna be the end of the world. And most people honestly expect to have like little to no conversation at the table they're seated at. So like, if you find a good group, that's good. If you don't, well, then they're expecting awkward conversation. So there really is no downside here. Do you think that a destination wedding would actually save you money, or is that a myth? This one's tough. Destination weddings are often seen as less expensive because less people attend them. It's like that one video that I did about your #1 budget killer, and that's your guest count. So if you have less people attending your event, obviously that's going to be cheaper. However, that being said, you are now paying for airfare, you're paying for accommodations, you're paying for a bunch of other things that you didn't quite anticipate paying for if you did something locally. So are destination weddings cheaper? Maybe, but that depends on how good you are at searching Travelocity. Because while you're saving potentially on the amount of guests you're inviting, you're spending more on travel. Why on earth is it more expensive to rent tablecloths than to buy? I had that same question myself when I was planning my wedding, and I was like, this is stupid. Like, I'm just gonna buy all these tablecloths. And if you haven't seen my DIY bride fail video, it was a nightmare. The quality of the purchased tablecloths were so terrible that I had to spend 45 minutes ironing each and every one, and they still got wrinkled afterwards. And then after the wedding, trying to launder them was obscenely difficult. And then I looked into getting them dry cleaned. It was more expensive than the cost of purchasing them. So renting tablecloths is more expensive because, one, they're better quality. Two, you don't have to worry about setup or tear down, and three, you don't have to worry about cleaning them or getting rid of them afterwards. So the rental companies take all of the headache and hassle out of the linen process. So that's one thing that I learned the hard way, and I don't recommend for anyone to ever purchase their linens, because even though it looks cheaper on paper, you create so much more work for yourself, and it's really hard to get rid of them afterwards, or it's really hard to get red wine out of them. Ugh. Have you worked any weddings where dogs or pets were present? And do you have any tips? Yes, I have. I have worked multiple events where there have been pets present, and it's been really, really cute for the most part. This depends entirely on your pet. if you have a particularly rambunctious dog, which we have seen before, you need to have a plan in place to make sure that dog can be removed from the ceremony, to make sure they're not too much of a distraction. After the ceremony, obviously there's the concern of who's going to take care of the dog. Usually I recommend having a family member or a friend on hand ready to go to take that pet to wherever they're going to be staying for the rest of the evening, whether that be the hotel down the street or into the house if you're doing a backyard wedding, but someone needs to be designated to either jump in if the dog gets to be too much, or be prepared after the ceremony is over to put them in another spot, because having them there throughout the entirety of the event can be a little bit more difficult. If your pet's well behaved, it shouldn't be a problem. If they're a bit on the rowdy side, have a solid plan in place, because that could be real difficult. I got a lot of questions that are already answered by other videos. So I think at the end of this, I'm just gonna go through like a list of those and point you in the direction of those videos, because I don't wanna go over stuff that I've already talked about for those of you who have watched all the videos, you know what I mean? So like, I'll go over those at the end. Ooh, this is a great one. When is the appropriate time to hire a wedding planner? I would say that there is not an inappropriate time to hire a wedding planner, but the best time to hire a wedding planner is really, really early on in your process, because the more time that we can spend with you, the more money we save you, the more time we save you, and the more stress we save you from. Because we know the industry, we know how much things should cost, we know what contracts should say, we can help you with your budget. The sooner you book us, the better. But even if you hit 3 months out and you're like, I can't handle this anymore, it's still an appropriate time to book a planner, to bring someone alongside you to help you deal with all the nitty-gritty details. Sure, he or she may not have been there from the very beginning to help you with your budget, but at least they can help you button down all the last-minute details. How do you diffuse tension between divorced parents? This one I got quite a few times, talking about family tension. How do we handle family tension? What do we do when there's two people who don't want to be around each other, but we can't imagine our wedding day without? And I can't speak to those situations because I don't know what's going on in your family or in your personal life, but I can tell you what I do as a wedding planner. I recommend that my clients have buffer humans in there somewhere to just kind of navigate that and make sure that they're, for lack of a better term, babysitting those two parties, to make sure they don't cross paths or have a tense conversation. In my experience, for the most part, those situations don't really pop up on your wedding day because everyone's there to celebrate you and they want what's best for you and they don't want to cause drama. If you have a concern for someone in your life potentially causing drama at your wedding, I do recommend that you have another person who's aware of the situation there on hand to kind of babysit the sitch. You know what I mean? Again, I haven't seen any blowups. We have dealt with divorced parents. We have dealt with family members who aren't speaking to each other, and no one did anything, but we did have other family members or friends ready to go in case anything started bubbling up. As far as like practicalities where people are seated, I do recommend not having them close to each other, just to give everyone the most amount of comfort in the situation. Not only will it make those two parties feel better, or three parties, or however many it happens to be, but it'll help you to feel better not being worried about that on your wedding day. I also recommend that you let your planner know. That is one of the questions I always ask my clients. Are there any sort of family situations that you want me to be aware of? You don't have to tell me anything, but if you think that there's gonna be a situation that you wanna loop me in on, let me know, and I will be here to help diffuse that if it happens. What is the smallest budget you've ever planned a wedding on? And what was the easiest and or hardest part? The smallest budget I've ever planned a wedding on is my own, and that was about $8,500. I did a video on that. I will go ahead and link it up here and down below. And the reason that I haven't done any weddings for anyone else at that budget is because I don't recommend that they hire me if they have a less than $10,000 budget. It's just not a wise allocation of their funds to spend however much on me as a coordinator or as a planner when they just don't have a whole lot to work with. That being said, I do offer consultations for couples who are working with a smaller budget because I do have firsthand experience with it and I do know how to help. I just don't recommend they hire me for any sort of long-term planning. The pros of having a small budget is, one, it's a small budget, so you're not spending a ton of money, which is fantastic. Two, you don't have a lot of options because you just can't afford the higher stuff. You're a lot more limited, which kind of saves you from waffling back and forth in decisions. You're just like, I only have $100 for this. Well, then it's only $100. Great, this is what we get. The cons to doing the small budget is you have to work a lot harder sometimes to find vendors or decor items that fit within your budget. The smaller the budget, the more time you need to put into finding all of the resources that work within the finances that you have. What is the worst thing that you've seen happen at a wedding? Okay, so you guys know that I don't necessarily always like talking about this because I never want my clients to watch these videos and be like, was that my wedding? But this one, like, the bride was very well aware of. The caterer showed up 6 hours late. That was probably the most angry I've ever been at a vendor. They're supposed to show up on site at a certain time and start cooking on site at that time. And they didn't. By the grace of God, we were only about an hour and a half late for dinner. I don't know how they made it up, but there was just people sitting and just waiting and hungry, and that's probably the worst thing I've ever seen. They were not a professional wedding caterer though, so keep that in mind. They weren't used to doing this. This wasn't their normal gig. They got caught in traffic, which I do understand, but not enough to make them 6 hours late. That's hands down the worst thing I think I've ever seen at a wedding, and I was so mad. I don't think I've ever been so firm with another professional in the industry than I was in that moment. Well, they were a professional in their own right, but they weren't a wedding professional, if that makes sense. So when I say like hire wedding professionals, that's one of the reasons I say it. Ooh, I still get so fired up thinking about that event. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. 6 hours, like what? Okay, I'm fine. If your venue offers a coordinator, do you really need an outside wedding coordinator? I did do a video on venue planner or venue coordinator versus wedding coordinator. There are some key differences. Oftentimes a venue will say that they have a wedding coordinator on site to run your wedding day. You need to know if they're going to run your rehearsal, if they're going to cue you to walk down the aisle for your ceremony. You need to know if they're going to do the setup of all of your personal items, table numbers, guest book, seating chart, and you need to know if they're going to contact your vendors to pass out a timeline. If they're not going to do those things, then I do highly recommend that you bring on a wedding coordinator. If they do offer those things, grab onto them and hold them real tight, because that is a precious gem and that's very rare. How much time do you need for setup if you're DIYing your centerpieces? This one's really hard because I don't know how many components that you would have for your centerpieces. I will say that the standard setup time is about 2 hours. That's for professionals. You could potentially have your centerpieces set up in 2 hours, but it just depends on the amount of people that you have and how intricate your centerpieces are. If it's really easy, just like one piece and like, great, then you could probably make it work in 2 hours. If it's extra complicated, like I was with my wedding, I'm pretty sure it was like a 4 or 5 hour setup, and there was like 11 dudes handling it. So I don't know how to help there. That was like the least helpful answer ever. Sorry. How do you feel about mixing textures for bridesmaids dresses? This trend has been coming in hot for the last few years, and I'm a huge fan of it. I like the mixing of textures. I also like that it makes it a lot more affordable for your bridesmaids, because then they can kind of pick something within a color scheme, and they can pick something that they really enjoy and potentially might wear again. I'm writing through 27 dresses. You could just shorten it and wear it again. Oh, totally. Chiffon, velvet, other fabric words here. Yes, I'm a fan, and I hope it sticks around for a long time. What is the hardest part about working with brides? I actually have been super blessed to have pretty much fantastic clients across the board, and I would say that it's not the brides that are the hardest to work with. Sometimes it's the moms. Sorry, not all the time. There's just been a handful of them that may have required a little bit more hand-holding throughout the process. So it's not the brides. The brides, I have fantastic clients. Oh, I'm so lucky. Just sometimes the moms need a little bit more coaxing into situations. Is that a PC way of putting it? How do I get people to just RSVP already? Oh, girl, you are not alone. People take forever to RSVP. It's just one of the worst parts about wedding planning, because you're going to be hunting everyone down being like, are you coming? I don't care if you say yes or no. Just give me a flipping answer and give it to me now. Okay, cool, thanks. Honestly, the only way that you can get people to RSVP, if they haven't done so already, is to seriously hunt them down. Call them, text them, email them, do whatever you can. If you get so close to your wedding date and they're not being responsive, send a final message that basically says, hey, if I don't hear from you by X date, I'm just gonna assume that you're not coming and we'll just celebrate with you at another time. Let them know that there's like an actual deadline to this, because you really do need that number, and give them an out in the most polite way possible, and then say you'll celebrate with them later. Just kind of diffuses things a bit. We are 20 minutes into this. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. What is your favorite thing about the wedding industry? Man, this is a great question. I love that the wedding industry is constantly redesigning what weddings look like. I love that the sky is the limit when it comes to centerpieces, decor, the way that you want to do your ceremony or your reception, and people are becoming less stressed about having the traditional perfect event and really just putting together something that defines them and their future spouse really, really well. That's what I love about the wedding industry. On the opposite hand, what is something that I like the least about the wedding industry? It's when couples feel like they have to spend $50,000 in order to get their dream wedding. I'm just not a fan of that mentality. I really do think that with some elbow grease and a heck of a lot of DIY, that you can make the wedding of your dreams while remaining within budget. And I got this one a lot. How and why did you start wedding planning? And so I'm probably gonna do a whole nother video on my business specifically, because I know there are a lot of planners or people who are interested in becoming planners that have a lot of questions about this. So I'm gonna dedicate a separate video to that. But real quick, because I know a lot of you are interested, if you've been around here for a while, then you know that I planned my own wedding. And I didn't have a day of coordinator for my wedding. And it was awful. I hated it. I hated it. But throughout the process, I really fell in love with it. I loved contacting vendors. I loved coming up with the design. I loved formatting the timeline. And my wedding ended, and I was like, I want to do that again. Like, that was really fun. It almost felt like the perfect convergence of all of my gifts, if that makes sense. That sounds a little self-aggrandizing, but that's okay, right? Within 6 weeks of my wedding, I booked my first clients, and they were some dear friends of my younger brother. And I was like, hey, why don't you just like trust me to do it, and we'll make this thing happen. And honestly, the rest is history. So I got started in wedding planning because I planned my own wedding. I didn't have a day of coordinator, hated that part, loved the planning part, and I wanted to save people from having the experience that I had on my wedding day, and I also just wanted to keep doing what I had been doing for however many months we were engaged. I think it was 8 months. So I just started it, and it's been a crazy, crazy ride ever since. So real quick before we go, there were a couple questions about things that have already been answered in other videos, so I just want to call a quick note to those. I'm going to link them down in the description box below if you guys are interested or if this was your question. Someone asked, I'm going to my first venue walkthrough, what questions should I ask? There's a video for that. A bunch of people said, what do people forget at the last minute? I have the 25 most commonly forgotten details. I'll link that down below. How do you pick your bridal party? How do you make a bomb timeline? Did a video on that. What's the difference between a planner and a coordinator? That there too. And there were quite a few questions on backyard weddings and Airbnb weddings. I lump those together because it's basically a private estate event. I did do a video on that. It's one of my first videos. My baby is so tiny in it. Like, watching it back, I'm so sad because he's so tiny. But basically, people asking for the biggest tip on planning a backyard event. And in summary, plan to build a venue from the ground up, because essentially that's what you're doing. But the rest of it I do cover in that video. That's all we have for today, folks. I have been filming for like 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. If you have more questions that I did not address in this video, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to get back to you. If you are interested in seeing like how to become a wedding planner, like part 2, because I already did a video on that, but if you want more detail on that, let me know in the comments below as well. And if you are not subscribed already, y'all, did you know that 60% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed? Oh yeah, I'm calling you out. I mean, you're here anyways, just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you can be notified every single time I upload a video. If you are not following me on Instagram, it is at JW Coordination. Go do that because I like interacting with you guys outside the YouTube sphere as well. Also, there were a lot of questions about me personally, like wanting to know how I met my husband, how he proposed, a lot more about my personal life, my kids, that kind of stuff. I have a second channel. It's lifestyle, I do vlogs, I do DIYs, I do other fun stuff, like not wedding related. Head on over there and check it out. I will probably end up doing a Q&A video over there too, to kind of discuss some of the other questions that I know a lot of you asked, because this is more of like a dedicated wedding planning channel. And I feel like if I uploaded a bunch of personal stuff about me, like that doesn't help you plan your wedding. So I'm gonna do that on the second channel. So if you're not subscribed over there, go ahead and do that. I'm gonna link that right over here for you guys to check out. Yeah, that's it. Also, should I bring my husband on this channel? Because he's really funny sometimes. A lot of you were asking for a groom's perspective on our wedding day. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, also let me know in the comments below. Man, I've given you all a lot of prompts for the comment section. Good luck remembering all that. Okay, bye.